Hi, everybody. It's Kim West, the Sleep Lady. And on this episode of the Gentle Parenting Show, I'm so honored to have my colleague, Dr. Temple, who you've already heard about as a holistic pediatrician. And today we are going to talk about eczema. So, welcome, Dr. Temple.
Hi, Kim. I'm so excited to be here. This is so great.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to have you on many more times because, of course, we can talk about babies and children for days.
All day, every day.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about eczema. I actually had a child who had pretty bad eczema as a baby, still has it sporadically as a young adult. Tell me a little bit about eczema, and for those, listeners who maybe don't know what it is or their children have it currently.
Yeah, eczema is a very tricky thing because
Mhm.
we've been made to believe that it's just a normal part of childhood. And I get so bent out of shape when people are like, well, it's normal. They're just going to outgrow it. And what we're seeing is actually in my own household, two of my children had eczema and my
Mm.
dog. I
Wow.
know the dog.
Huh.
So my kids, when they were little, my daughter had she was a C-section baby, and she developed these red, scaly, red, itchy patches on the inside of her elbows and behind her knees. She would have them on her lower
Mhm.
belly. And when she was about 6 years old, I had gone away on a trip, and we came back. My husband and I came back, and she was being watched by my mom and aunt, and she was covered in red, oozing pus of
Whoa.
stuff. She was so infected from her eczema, it had gotten out of control. And it was
Mhm.
right about that time that all my children were on antibiotics, and everyone had snot and congestion and constipation and
Mhm.
recurrent ear infection. Exhausting.
Right.
And I had enough at that time. And I went to the doctor, and I was like, what's going on with my kids? Like, why are they so sick? I was 5 years into general pediatric practice. I'm a traditionally trained doctor. And the pediatricians were like, well, for her, if as long as she uses topical steroids, her eczema will go away. Obviously, she needs antibiotics right now, and then it will get
Mhm.
better. For asthma, we'll just do inhaled corticosteroids. And then for her seasonal allergies, we're going to do Zyrtec. And for chronic
Right.
constipation, Miralax, and on it went. I was like,
Right.
she is 6 years old.
Right.
How can this be the right answer? Anyway, not to mention
Mhm.
by the other kids. Anyway, so then um, I got frustrated by seeing this skin condition, and I went. It's like my mom herself was like, "This cannot be the answer for the rest of our lives. My children cannot be on this medication." My doctor self was like, "I don't know what to do. I only know steroids and antibiotics." And so
Mhm.
my mom herself was like, "Okay, well, we're going to figure something out. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to figure it out." And a week later,
Mhm.
I went to my children's school, and a nutritionist, it's like 7:30 on a Tuesday morning in a freezing cold first grade classroom, squished in a desk. The fog lifted, and I realized one of the issues behind my children's chronic disease and my children's eczema, all the nutritionist that talked about was sugar. And I was like, oh
Mm.
my gosh. I thought I was feeding my kids well balanced meals with some strawberries at lunch and broccoli at dinner. I didn't even realize all the hidden sugar and garbage that I was actually feeding my kids.
Mm.
Anyway, so I went home that night after work and went into the pantry, into the heart of all my family. I chucked away the cinnamon toast crunch and the Pop Tarts and chicken nuggets and chocolate milk and juice boxes,
Mhm.
and it was an area. I became an outcast in my own family. John and I, my
Mhm.
husband, fought for
Mhm.
5 years over food. My
Mhm.
my friends were like, "You've lost your mind." My family, was like, "We're gonna cross you off the will because we don't know what place you've gone to, dark, dark place." Anyway, but as a warrior mom, you're like, I don't care what anyone else is saying. This is what I'm gonna do. And
Mhm.
over the next 5 years, because I didn't even really have Google, I got rid of the processed food, the food coloring, brought fruits and vegetables into my kids' diet at every meal and snack, and my daughter's
Mhm.
eczema got better.
Mm.
Interesting fact, my
Mhm.
son, my middle son, who was covered in snot as a youngster, like the kind of boogers that these days you would never be allowed out of your house, right? He also had ADHD, was on numerous antibiotics because of sinus infections.
Mm.
Anyway, at the age of 15, he developed eczema, and he was covered in red,
Mm.
bleeding, oozy stuff on his face and his upper chest.
Oh.
And at that time, I was already into functional medicine and practice. I was like, hold up. So then we had to go a little deeper, more than just processed foods and sugar. By that time, his diet was really good. Now we had to go into more food allergies, into gut healing.
Mm.
And that's how his symptom resolved. And then as for my
Mm.
dog, took him to the vet, and they were like, he has a weird skin condition. We don't know what it is, but what he needs is steroids and antibiotics. I was like, are you kidding me right now? Here we go one more time. And I was like, well, food helped my children get better. What if that helped the dog? Long story short, changed his diet. His skin got better, hasn't had eczema in 4 years. He's on supplements for his gut healing. And so here we go. But back to the original question. So the whole
Mm.
point of that is that being in that journey helped me really realize
Yeah.
the extent of the eczema epidemic. In
Yeah.
1970s, 1 in 15 children had eczema. Today is 1 in 5. And in some
Wow.
cultures is 1
Mm.
in 2. That's, if you have 2 kids, one of them is
Wow.
going to have eczema. Incredible.
Wow.
And
Hmm.
20% of kids never outgrow eczema. They carry it on through the rest of their lives.
Mhm.
Most eczema starts before the children are 5 years old, right in the beginning of their life.
Mhm.
And oftentimes, eczema is a um, harbinger. It's a yellow flag or red flag from the body saying something is amiss. And when we don't pay attention to
Mhm.
it, besides putting topical steroids on, we
Mhm.
miss the fact that the body is unwell, and it
Mhm.
will likely develop food allergies, seasonal allergies, or asthma, or anxiety, or depression, or ADHD. So the eczema
Wow.
for a lot of people seems like, oh, I've outgrown it, quote unquote. And then I'm like, yeah, but do you have seasonal allergies or asthma? Or yeah,
Mm.
they're like, yeah,
Mm.
why do you ask? I'm like, well, you've never outgrown your eczema. It just
Right.
seems like it's gone away, but it's now
Hmm.
manifesting in other forms.
Is there also a connection with reflux and eczema?
Such a great question. There is a strong connection between eczema and reflux because, number one, reflux is telling us that the baby's gut is not doing well, or the
Mhm.
child, or the adult. And reflux medications that we use have been shown in the medical literature to predispose people to developing eczema. And a lot of people say, well, I've never heard of that because I've looked it up. What are the causes of eczema? You don't see reflux or reflux meds, but for everyone out there listening,
Mhm.
Google Zantac and eczema. Does Zantac or does Prilosec cause eczema? And your Google search engine and PubMed will blow up. And you're like, what? Because it's
Wow.
not about, it's how you search things.
Mhm. That's so true. I've seen it as a connection. And what about you hear a lot about eczema and dairy, and also that it's genetic.
Oh, some of my favorite topics. Oh my gosh. Okay. So genetic, right? So there is a genetic component that, for example, filaggrin. There's a gene. Filaggrin is like for my nerdy people out there, is a substance in our skin. It's a protein structure that holds our skin together, helps the pH balance of the skin, moisturizing and plumping the cells. When you have a defect in that gene, that protein is not very stable. So it's kind of, the
Mhm.
cells could be wimpy, but it's not one thing, because everybody goes, oh, I have a genetic defect, therefore. But it's not one thing, because they've done that in knockout mice. So in mice, you can create a mouse with that genetic defect. And when
Mhm.
they do the mouse with that genetic defect alone, they don't necessarily develop eczema. Other things have to happen, like
Mhm.
their diet, other skin
Mhm.
issues, environmental toxins, etc., for that to happen. So what I
Mhm.
usually tell people, genetics load the gun and the environment pulls the trigger. So in
Mm.
our current culture, everyone is like, ah, it's genetic, there's just nothing I can do. I'm here
Right.
to tell you, we have the power to change our genes expression, and that's called epigenetics.
Mhm.
Huge field of study that has mind-blowing
Mhm.
results.
Mm. Love that. That's a great metaphor. Okay, so then how about dairy?
Dairy.
Mhm.
Dairy is a yummy, delicious, and amazing food. However, it is inflammatory, and the
Mhm.
specific inflammatory parts are the casein, and for some people, the whey, but casein is specifically inflammatory,
Mm.
especially A1 casein. The issue is not necessarily that, oh my God, dairy is inflammatory, no one should have it. The problem is we are overloaded with dairy.
Mhm.
What happens when a mama can't breastfeed? Formula.
Mhm.
What is the
Mhm.
first ingredient in a formula? Dairy.
Mhm.
If when you change your children from breast milk to something to drink at the age of 1, the universal recommendation is milk. And
Right.
now the children have 24 to 36 ounces of milk a day for some reason that we've decided that that's what they need in
Hmm.
the United States, because by the way, in
Hmm.
other countries, that's not the case.
Right.
And then we do yogurt and
Hmm.
cheese and butter and ice
Hmm.
cream. So all of a sudden, your toddler is drowning in dairy. And people are like,
Yeah.
I don't eat that much dairy. I was like, okay, great, sweet. So since you're not eating that much dairy for the next 48 hours, let's say a week, you're going to go dairy free. And
Right.
since you're not eating a lot of dairy, it's going to be easy peasy.
Right.
99% of my patients call me back in 48 hours in tears, like, this is so hard. Why? And I'm like, I know, because it's in everything,
It
right?
is.
Go to your
Yeah.
Christmas party and say,
Mhm.
I'm dairy free. I challenge you.
Mhm.
See what you can eat.
Right.
Right. And so, anyway, so it is inflammatory in
Carrots.
itself, but then also we are overdosed with dairy. And a lot of people are like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's delicious. I'm like, well, I know no one is overdosed with Brussels sprouts.
Mhm.
We're
Mhm.
overdosed with dairy. And dairy, the casein in dairy is so addictive to the brain, right? So we know those babies and
Mhm.
toddlers who are like, I need my milk, and they just cry for their bottles and for their milk because they're truly addicted to dairy, because the casein goes into the brain and connects into the same receptor as opioids or morphine that make
Right.
us feel really good.
Yeah. So that's why I hear that for adults, the two hardest things to give up, they say, are bacon and cheese. And that's why.
Jeez, I know. And then, like, for like, when I have people coming in and I have people that are sick, here's another pro tip. If your child is constipated, dairy is the most constipating food in the world. And my
Yeah.
families are like, they're just like, but how are we going to do it? They love it so much. I was like, okay, well, the toddler can go to the store and buy food, and the
Yeah.
toddler can't, has no money. So
Yeah.
we're bringing in the goods into the house, and they will be okay. But we're just like, oh my God, but they're going to scream and whine. And we know
Right.
it's not necessarily good, but we're so struggling as parents to do the best that we can. And we don't want them
Mm-hmm.
screaming, and we don't want our children
Hmm.
unhappy. So it's a struggle. The struggle is
Yeah.
real.
Do you ever have the parents sort of wean them off slowly so as they get adjusted?
Totally. Yes.
Yeah.
Weaning them off slowly is
Hmm.
a great idea. And then I have some parents that are
Hmm.
like hardcore. They're like, what did you say? Because I mean, when a
Right.
child is on Miralax and they
Yeah.
can't get them off medications, I have some parents that are like, okay, we're done with the medication. What can we do? And they go full court press. But it is up. Each person is on their own journey. You do
Yeah.
it in your own time.
Yeah. Yeah. As long as you can follow through with it, right? Same for sleep coaching.
Consistency.
Mhm,
Consistency is the key.
exactly. It is. It
Yes.
is. Okay. So then what are some, I think we've talked about some of this, but maybe what are some of the mistakes that parents make when trying to treat eczema, and what can they do to undo that, and where do they start?
Right. But I wanted before that, I wanted to add one more thing, because you brought up reflux. And another thing that we give babies a lot of, and toddlers, is we give them a lot of Tylenol or acetaminophen for
Mm-hmm.
teething. And
Yes.
acetaminophen, it has a direct link to developing eczema. In fact, one
Wow.
dose of Tylenol can increase your child's risk of eczema by 50%. Stop
Wow.
it. And then if you're doing 3 doses or more, it could increase your child's risk of eczema up to 80%. And when children are
Wow.
teething, they're fussy, they
Yeah.
seem irritable, fevers, all the other stuff, we're like,
Yeah.
we're reaching for the Tylenol because we think it's gentle. And in fact, it can
Mm.
cause more harm than good. So just kind of putting that out there,
Mm.
because a misconception is that it's genetic. There's nothing we can do. They have reflux, we give them Zantac. They have teething, they give them Tylenol. They have an ear infection, they get antibiotics. And all
Right.
those 3 things are loading the gun and pulling the trigger for with your child developing eczema. So misconception
Wow.
number 1 that we talk about is that is genetic. There's nothing you can do. Absolutely. Let's take a look in um, in their child's history and see what's been
Mhm.
going on and what they've been exposed to.
Mhm.
The second misconception is that topical steroids are the answer to eczema. They help Absolutely, but they're a
Hmm.
band-aid. They're not
Yeah.
fixing the issue within. Eczema is not a skin issue only, it is a
Mm-hmm.
gut issue. So we have to
Ah.
rebalance the gut from within, and we have to rebalance the skin on the outside.
Mm.
Steroids are only anti-inflammatory, they're band-aid. They make it seem like we're doing something for our children. They seem better, but we're not dealing with the underlying issue, which can lead to things like we talked about: food
Mm.
allergies, seasonal
Mm-hmm.
allergies, asthma, anxiety, ADHD.
Mm.
Another misconception is, or mistake, is that people go, aha, I heard about dairy on the podcast, so
Mm-hmm.
I am now going to reduce dairy, forgetting that processed foods and sugar are
Mm-hmm.
probably even a more of an issue in eczema than dairy. So
Mm.
people go for
Mm.
dairy, and then the kids are eating like dairy-free cookies,
Right.
or Gatorade is dairy-free. I mean,
Right.
Pop Tarts are
Right.
dairy-free. No, those are all processed foods with food coloring and preservatives that are going to
Mm.
cause horrible things to the children's skin. Garbage in, garbage out.
Mm.
The other misconception is, oh my gosh, well, we'll do a food elimination and we should be good. We can't just eliminate food from children's diets. That's not a plan. Like, that's just, I've
Right.
removed it. But what are we doing to heal the problem? We need to do a very
Mm.
specific gut healing protocol to help rebalance, restore, renew the gut, so we
Mm.
can so we're able to eat variety of foods in our life without breaking out into eczema.
Right. And so how do we start with healing our gut?
Well, first is mindset. Number
Mm.
one is mindset. Knowing
Mm.
that the power is that you have the power and the control to change your child's skin.
Mhm.
Second mindset thing is, every you read out there, there's no cure, there's no cure. Well, no, okay. So eczema cure means I go to the doctor, they give me a pill, and I am done with the illness.
Mhm.
Healing is you give the body the right tools and the body fixes the problem. My husband
Mm.
was an orthopedic
I like
surgeon,
that.
says it beautifully like this: when you break a bone, you're never going to cure the fracture. The bone
Mm.
breaks and then it remodels itself with calcium and all this stuff. The bone is never going to be the same as the bone that was not broken. It's never going to be as, however, it regains its function and it regains its
Mm.
structure and is able to perform at the same caliber as was before, but it's not the same. That's healing versus
Mm.
curing.
I
And
like that.
healing involves us doing some hard work. And
Mhm.
mindset, yes, we have the power to do this.
Yeah.
It is going to be hard. We have to change our lifestyle. You cannot live the same lifestyle that has caused this
Mhm.
chronic disease and expect the chronic disease to go away. So a lot of people are like,
Right.
I don't want to change anything. So
Right.
why is my kid not better? I'm like, well, you,
Right.
it's the whatever you're doing now is causing the eczema. We've got to do something different. Albert Einstein said,
Mhm.
you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. So
Mhm.
we have to have a really good look at our house and what we're doing, and then we're going to have
Mhm.
to remove processed foods. We're going to reduce sugar. Dairy is next. Let's
Mhm.
partner up with a good provider that we can work with some supplements, things that you can do on your own, or like vitamin D and zinc and a probiotic. Those are things that are pretty safe to do on your own. Some
Mhm.
lab work would be lovely, but you really need to partner up with somebody, especially once you start removing foods, because it's not about
Yeah.
removing, it's about replacing. So if we're going to take
Yeah.
away dairy, well, then we should bring in avocado. If we're going to take
Mhm.
away Pop Tarts, we're going to bring in, eggs and vegetables. Like, we can't
Mhm.
just, it's not about removal, it's replacement. And that we need
Yeah.
help from somebody that is trained in it, because I've seen a lot of
Mhm.
mistakes where kids come in malnourished, which actually makes the skin worse.
Wow. Okay. So going first back to your pediatrician, and then maybe sometimes a nutritionist, right?
Absolutely. There's no,
Mhm.
I think too, these days it seems like, like our mom word is mom with an MD degree, nutritionist degree, chemical engineer, political science. It's like
Right.
we have to have all these specialties. Like, we feel like we have to be everything for our children. And if
Yeah.
we're not, we're less than insert thing, but we're less
Mm-hmm.
than a perfect woman, which that doesn't exist. And
Yeah.
the definition of mom does not have include doctor and nutrition
Mm-hmm.
and all the other stuff in that word. But we have now, because of social
Mm-hmm.
media, have now internalized this, and we're
Mm-hmm.
very reluctant to outsource and get help from people that do this. Your life would be so much easier. And then you can spend time loving your babies and playing
Mm-hmm.
outside and cuddling
Mm-hmm.
them rather than endless
Mm-hmm.
hours on Google.
Yes.
Yes.
That's so true. It's much, I don't know. I always feel like I know what I know and I know what I don't know. And I'm going to go find those people if I need help with something I don't know about.
Right, but I'm sure you find with your audience, and I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
everyone who's listening, you've
Mm-hmm.
been in that position where you're like, oh, well, I don't want to ask for help because then, and
Mm-hmm.
it's your own internal voice that is like the evil. Oh, well, because I should
Yeah.
be able to wash my kids and dishes and laundry and work and do school Zoom and
Right.
work Zoom and
Right.
yeah,
And everything and
and
do it all perfectly and feed everybody organic food that's healthy and right.
and I'll
Right.
lose your mind. Yeah,
Right.
right.
So do you think it would be hard for a parent to I mean I was told exactly what you were told with my kids like oh you have an ear infection you have antibiotic oh they have eczema here's some cortisone cream like the same thing so what if there's a parent who's hearing that same message I mean
What I tell everybody, I was like, listen, a lot of pediatricians do have other information, but we have a bias. So when I was seeing patients in the traditional practice and I was running 10-minute visits, right? You're like in and out,
right
and you've waited 45 minutes and there's like screaming kids. So the
right
pediatrician's like, oh my God, you have a cold. You probably want antibiotics. Let me give you antibiotics because it's easier for everybody. And
hmm
if you just stop and go, hey, listen, I know that my child has an ear infection. What can I do for the next 48 hours to see if I could not use the antibiotics? And a
hmm
lot of pediatricians will be like, okay, let me give you problem, or some of them are going to be very honest and go, well, I don't know what else, but you can find
yeah
other people that will help you.
yeah
And asking questions, well, topical steroids. Well, it doesn't sound right to me. It is okay to ask. You ask in a polite manner. We're not going to
right
be confrontational, but it's okay to go, I'm not comfortable with steroids. What other things can I do?
yeah hmm
My child has reflux. I really don't want medicines. What
hmm
other options are there? Those are just,
hmm
and if your pediatrician or family practice, whatever provider cannot answer, it might
hmm
be time to look for a different pediatrician. You don't
hmm
have to find a holistic pediatrician specifically. I mean, we're
hmm
pretty awesome. I'm not going to lie, but
yeah I think so
I'm just saying, but but there's other pediatricians that are more open-minded, that have
hmm
more natural options for you. So it's
yeah
not all pediatricians are created equal, or family practice, whatever. If you're not getting your questions answered, it might be time to look for someone
hmm
else. No,
hmm
no offense.
yeah makes sense to me. I feel that the same way around sleep. Like I tell families, like your pediatrician, you're going to have a relationship with them for 18, 21 years, depending on when they send you over to the internal medicine doc. And you need to feel like you can tell them anything and your concerns and they can problem solve.
Yeah, and that you're being
hmm
heard. You
Yeah.
need to feel heard. And it's
hmm
hard, what? And here,
hmm
it's not the pediatrician's doctor's fault. The hospitals are the ones who drive the 10-minute visits. It's not the doctors. The doctors want to hang out with
Right.
you for 30 minutes to an hour, I promise you.
Right.
But it's the hospitals, they're like, no, 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 see more patients. And we're going to
Right.
cut your salaries and your bonus and it's the suits that are the problem.
Yeah.
And, but you can in 10 minutes
hmm
get information that you need in a kind and
hmm
respectful way and be heard. If you're not
hmm
feeling heard, you're not in the right place.
Yeah, yeah, love that. So maybe since we have a few more minutes, can we talk about, even though it's not directly about eczema, but it sounds like it is so one is teething. So if I have found both as a mom and in my practice that some kids are more sensitive to teething than others. So do you, if acetaminophen or Tylenol is not the best option, what are some other options for, let's say, that percentage of babies who get like the diaper rash, the low grade fever, fussy day and night, and not eating as much because their gums are swollen.
I mean, it is so hard when our children are in pain. Like it rips our hearts out. It's
Yeah.
so difficult.
Hmm.
This is not going to be a popular answer,
Hmm.
but it is okay to have pain.
Yeah.
Pain is part of living. Now, okay, we're not going to get on this soapbox, but in the United States, they created the pain score as the sixth vital sign. And then we created an opioid addiction problem because like no one should have pain. And we gave this
Right.
message like nobody should have pain. And it's
Right.
funny because in New Zealand, people got come in and we talk about pain. They're like, of course I have pain. I'm alive. I mean, it's going to take time to heal. And I'm like, what?
Right.
What do you guys say in New Zealand? Really? So in the US, we're like intolerant of pain. No, I'm not saying that they need to scream in horror, but you don't have the mentality should be like, let me take away all the pain. We should
Right.
reduce the pain and discomfort, but it's
Yeah.
not going to be 100% because we got the teeth have to pop out and then they're done with it. It's not,
Hmm.
heart surgery. Like we make it like it's a massive ordeal. It's
Yeah.
annoying. The baby's suffering. I hear you. And we approach
Yeah.
them with kindness and,
Hmm.
and coddle them and love them. So
Hmm.
number one, we're not going to make the whole pain go away because that's when we get in trouble with too many meds. Number
Hmm.
two, frozen breast milk. If you took breast milk and put it in little ice cubes, and then you have the
Hmm.
mesh feeders, and then
Hmm.
if the baby can't hold it, you can hold it in their mouth on their gums.
Hmm.
Cold is going to decrease inflammation. The breast milk has natural sugar. Sugar is actually goes to the pain receptors and helps alleviate pain. In fact, when I was transporting kids in helicopters for UCLA, and I didn't want to use pain medicines, we would have we would have water with sugar, and we would give
Hmm.
that to the children, which would alleviate their pain, so they could make the transport to the hospital in order to receive, their full medical care. But that way, we weren't overdosing them with too many pain meds. And if you
Amazing.
don't have breast milk,
Hmm.
frozen grapes are amazing. You put
Hmm.
grapes in the freezer. Grapes are very high in natural sugar. Again, the cold decreases inflammation. The sugar is such a great pain alleviator. I use that in my clinic all the time with amazing success.
Hmm.
Mangoes are very high in sugar. So when we think high sugar fruits, freeze them, put them in the mesh feeders. They now have pacifiers that are silicone with holes in them. So you
Hmm.
can put like frozen bits in there that will also help.
Hmm.
You can use some essential oils.
Hmm.
Essential oils, I use clove, one drop per 5 mLs, and then you can put it on the outside. And the oil that you use, a carrier olive oil, because that you can internalize that. And you
Hmm.
can do for internal is 1 drop to 15 mLs of olive oil, and you can put it inside on their gums, and that will
Nice.
also decrease inflammation.
Love all those fabulous tips.
And then
Okay.
and none of those are going to have long term side effects, and they're going to
Hmm.
need to be loved. They're going to be nursed more frequently. If they
Hmm.
don't need to eat while they're teething, that's
Hmm.
okay. I'm pretty sure you're looking at a chunko and
Hmm.
the double
Hmm.
chin, so just be
Hmm.
reassured. Okay, one day of nursing a little less than normal, they're going to be fine.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, love that. My gosh, I wished I had known all these things way back when my kids were little.
It's hard, especially, but you're right though.
Hmm.
There's some babies. Fortunately, my kids never had. I never had an issue with teething. I can't tell you why that is, but
Hmm.
because I have no pain tolerance, so you'd think that they would have no pain tolerance. But but it's true though. There's some kids that are so incredibly sensitive.
Yeah.
Also, I want to say that there's
Hmm.
also a lot of moms that are hypersensitive. I think it's
Yeah.
both. The
Yeah.
moms get really wound up about
Yeah.
it, and then I have
Yeah.
moms that are kind of like, well, it's teething, you're going to deal, you're going to live, it's not a big
Right.
deal. And then I have the moms that like fall apart because it depends on
Hmm.
how our relationship with our kids, and neither side is
Hmm.
bad. It's just that's
Right.
how your family works, and it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Let's see. I was just thinking maybe to kind of wrap this up. I just want to make sure we connected, or maybe do you have anything else you would like to say about reflux and its connection, or is it, yeah.
Yeah. So in the reflux world, no,
Hmm.
reflux. Interestingly, when I was in traditional practice, I started questioning medications. I'm like, seems like there's a lot of medications going around,
Right.
and read this great study like way back when. And actually, what they did is they took babies that had a reflux and they put them in two arms. One arm was they went on Zantac and I think it was Prilosec, but doesn't matter, on an
Yep.
anti-reflux medication. And the other arm, the babies were put on non-dairy formula, and the moms
Mhm.
had to remove dairy and soy from their diet.
Mhm.
And they followed out. And the kids
Mhm.
in where they had diet modifications, 75%, it's a big number,
Yep.
75% never needed anti-reflux medications. Huge.
Yep.
Back to the diet. Not all
Right.
food that is on our table is healing to 100% of the people. Some
Mhm.
food hurts you, even though it's
Mhm.
organic and grass fed and it's from a cow that's been loved. That
Right.
dairy may not be sitting well with your belly or your baby's
Mhm.
belly. So, the
Mhm.
first thing for reflux is going to be dairy and soy removal from your diet and from the baby's
Mhm.
diet.
Mhm.
There's other
Mhm.
things that you can do. So, and it's not only dairy. Sometimes gluten is a problem. Sometimes eggs or
Mhm.
nuts. But again, please do this only with the help of a nutritionist. So, mama, you don't become malnourished and the baby doesn't
Yeah.
become malnourished. But
Right.
dairy is not the only thing that causes reflux. In
Okay.
older kids,
Mhm.
sugar is a big problem. We're going to be dealing
Mhm.
with the juice boxes, the Gatorades.
Mhm.
Usually, juice boxes
Mhm.
are a problem. There's a
Mhm.
lot of sugar in children's diet. I mean, from the
Okay.
teethers
Hmm.
to the cereal to
Right.
convenience foods. Just think convenience food is generally is good for, and it's if it's geared towards kids. One of the things I tell all my clients, I go, if on the
Mhm.
package it says
Mhm.
kids, be it a
Mhm.
supplement, be it a food, be it whatever, it is going to have sugar, stevia, monk fruit, some kind of sweetener in it. So when you see kids, flip it over and look in the ingredients. I guarantee you it's going to have some form of sugar in there. And that's
Okay.
scary. That's scary. And that's a trigger of reflux.
What I think about how so often we used dips to get our kids to eat things, and how much sugar's in ketchup or ranch dressing, they're dipping the carrot. And you're like, I'm feeding my kid vegetables. I'm doing a great job.
Right, right. And but it's so hidden. And it's like, and everybody
Mhm.
feels like a bad mom. I'm like, you're not a bad mom. It's the food industry that
Yeah.
that's gotten us because you're like, I'm
Yeah.
buying. There was recently, I bought the same jar of peanut butter. This just happened 2 days ago. I bought the same jar of peanut butter with no sugar in it. And I've stopped looking at the ingredients because it's the same brand. And the other
Right.
day, I happened to flip it over and I was like, why is there sugar in my brand of peanut butter that I bought for a long time? And I
Huh.
specifically picked it for no sugar. They changed it up on me. I look, it happens to me too. Yep.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Gotta
Mm-hmm.
be on another thing to be on top of.
Oh my God. That's why you really need to. I'm going to promote myself right now. Follow me on Instagram because
Mhm.
I spend, all the proceeds I get from the different courses stuff. I mean, I spend the time to educate for free because it is so confusing. And I'm just
It
trying to
is.
decipher all the different things between from supplements to food to eczema to other childhood illnesses to help support you in knowing how to treat your kids more naturally with less meds.
And her handle on Instagram is Dr. Anna Maria Temple. But
Thank
we'll
you.
put that
Thank you.
link on the
Thank you.
episode page too. Tell us a little bit as a final, note for this podcast about your books and your upcoming books and
Yeah,
what.
so in order to
Mhm,
make parents' life easier, my goal is
mhm,
to change children's lives.
mhm,
And me one on one in clinic is just not enough. And so,
mhm,
because of my online eczema transformation program has been so successful, we are coming
mhm,
up with a book that is
mhm,
going to help give parents a starting point
mhm,
that is going to be is financially feasible. I think I can't tell you. Under $20, where you can
mhm.
start getting some ideas on how to heal your children eczema from the inside out. And that's going
Awesome.
to be coming out in March. So we're super excited.
Fabulous.
And yeah, and then with the pandemic that we have going on, and everyone is trying to help build their immune systems and all the things we're talking about, different ingredients and food confusion. My book, Healthy Kids in an Unhealthy World, is coming out January 14th.
All
And that's going
right.
to be so we can, again, so you can start doing small steps. Because the thing is,
Mhm,
we are overwhelmed. I'm sorry,
mhm,
we're overwhelmed by all social media. I love Instagram and I love social
mhm,
media, but at the same time, we can fall in a deep, dark hole and not feel good enough.
mhm,
And I've fallen prey to that too.
mhm,
But because of that, it seems like everyone is just like, ah, and I changed my family's life in one day. It took me 12 years to change
Right.
my family's lifestyle. And we're still on the
Mhm.
journey. We're still
Mhm.
changing and
Mhm.
remodeling and adjusting to what the times bring.
Yeah. And as we learn new information too. Yeah.
Right. And the other thing
Mhm.
is like we feel guilty, like, oh, well, I feel so bad because I didn't know that being in residency and having children in residency was going to set them up with chronic disease from the stress in utero. I feel
Right.
so bad
Jeez.
because
Right.
I didn't know that eating frozen burritos and drinking Diet Coke and Pop Tarts all through pregnancy was not the best idea. Because if you look at my
Right.
diet and what it was like
Right.
horrendous. And
Right.
the way I raised my children initially was horrendous.
Right.
But I'm like, but that's
You
all I
didn't
knew.
know.
I
Yeah.
didn't know.
Yeah.
And now I know. So I
Right.
change. And
Yeah.
my goal is be better today than you were yesterday.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much. Oh, wait, by the way, and families can go check out your course, right, on
Yes.
eczema, because that
Yes.
is
That
available right
that
away.
is available right away.
Fabulous.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll
And
put
you
a
can,
link.
yep. And so the eczema course, the nice thing is you do your stepwise
Hmm.
DIY, but you
Hmm.
have support from me and my health coach twice
Hmm.
weekly on Facebook Live. So we can do a more personalized approach to each person rather
Right.
than just like, oh, it's a standard thing and you just suck it up and do it. So we
Right.
support you all the way through the program.
Amazing. Thank you, Dr. Temple. If you want to learn more about Dr. Temple and her courses and her books and follow her on Instagram, go to sleeplady.com/podcast and we'll have all the amazing links so you can go check it out. Thanks again, Dr. Temple.
Thank you so much for having me. So appreciate it.